Um, so this is just like really the part where we describe our paper, and I'm gonna kind of introduce what the whole like assignment is about, and then explain each section of it, and then you'll see little clips from our 2-hour excursion adventure, whatever you like to call it. So this assignment was just basically, this is the time that we were able to put ourselves into the disability and really experience what it's like. So there are multiple different sections of this. There's the skills analysis, there is environmental barriers, there's social reactions, there's personal reactions, and then professional implications, and then the summary at the very end where we kind of debrief, and we do that immediately after. So it won't be a video like this where it's just one, it's either me or Victoria. But I'm gonna talk about a few of them, and then Victoria's gonna talk about a few of them, and yeah, so the next person you'll see is Victoria.
Okay, so I will be covering skill analysis, social reactions, and professional implications. Starting with skill analysis. The 5 skill sets we went through off of the checklist is going through rough terrain. Now we went through modern rough terrain. Let me explain that a little bit. It was the day after it rained, so we tried going through the grass, which was really tough. And as we kept rolling around campus, we realized that the sidewalks and the curbs and just getting up and down the hills was rough terrain. The sidewalks had cracks in them, they were missing pieces, the curbs were cracked as well, and we found ourselves trying to casually and easily get through the sidewalks and roll around, and it was really rough, it was really hard. Another checklist was we went up and down the elevator, and we realized that there was no convenient elevator that was close enough to student activities or the bookstore or the cafeteria. It was all the way around in a spot that you would think was only for staff, which was really disappointing. Another skill set was we introduced ourselves to SGA, and they were so happy that we went there, and they introduced themselves, we introduced ourselves, and they were willing to take a photo with us, which was really cool. Another thing was that Maggie ordered food by herself. We got her up to the wheelchair, she ordered by herself, she wheeled away, and then we went to go pick up the order, which she did by herself as well. So proud. Another thing was that we did a transfer from the chair to the booth. Now, I went through the process of removing the leg, making sure that the chair was stationary, and I did the lift where she put her arms around my neck, and I put my arms under her, and then we did the lift up and transfer over, which was really fun, interesting, and obviously a little different than someone who is disabled from the waist down, because obviously there would be more of a weight for me to hold on to and transfer over. The next thing is going to be the social reactions. Now this kind of bugs me, and I know that it is normal for humans to stare, it's normal for humans to take in something that's different, and they have their own reactions to it. However, there was one specific person that did not take her eyes off of Maggie in the wheelchair and was staring at her as if it was the first time she'd ever seen somebody in a wheelchair, or as if Maggie was less than. And that really bugged me. And it was a janitorial worker, and she just stared at Maggie, and she kept walking as if she was using her peripheral to guide her through the chairs, and she just stared at Maggie, and she was pushing her cart and staring at her. That really bugged me. Otherwise, the rest of the nonverbal reactions were normal for any person out in society. they would make space for us, not giving funny faces or huffing or having any negative response, which was really nice. I did like that. And then for the verbal reactions, we got some mainly from 2 passage students and friends of Maggie, and they were just like, "What's wrong?" So they were showing concern, thinking that something might have actually happened. And when we explained that it was a disability simulation, they were like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm kind of glad that you're okay," things like that. And that was an experience. And I know for Maggie, it's off-putting, you know, because obviously she knows she's able-bodied, and we talk about this in the video. Sometimes it's just weird and off-putting, and you would think that everyone's just like, "Oh, okay, hey, let me get out of your way, you know, be polite," normal things like that. And I know myself, sometimes I do stare, so I totally understand that aspect. It's the over staring, it's the almost disrespectful, but not fully disrespectful, because you're taking in the person and what's happening. So now we're continuing to professional implications. So this is how I interpreted the simulation. The simulation provided a better hands-on view of what it takes to work with different types of abled bodies. I can imply the amount of physical strength and mental awareness of what is happening around us and what the person might be going through during an activity or general ADL. The number one thing that popped into my head was advocating for proper sidewalks, making sure the doors are properly set up for wheelchair people needing their buttons. And even if they're not even in a wheelchair, just advocating for proper structures in place so they can function as if everyone else does. So we are all included in getting through the doorway and getting down the sidewalk and getting across the street, going down the hall, getting into the bathroom, things like that. Even the bathrooms didn't have a push button open, and we didn't talk about that in the video, but thinking about it now, that should be a thing. The doors are big enough, the mechanisms are big enough to where the bathroom door can open. It's pretty hard, even myself, sometimes the doors are too heavy and I can't open them. Imagine being in a wheelchair or lack of arm strength and trying to open the door. Keeping those things in mind going forward with leisure activities and recreational therapy, you're needing to put yourself in your patient's shoes to really understand what they're going through and being able to bond with them, to include them in the activities we're doing with all the different functions that they have and don't have. So yeah, and our debrief explains the summary.
Alrighty, hey y'all, so I am now going to discuss the environmental barriers and then the personal reactions. They're very similar to like the social reactions, but we're gonna separate the two. So Victoria talked about earlier in the video about how we kept running into issues with the sidewalks and it being very bumpy and very like crack filled, and it was not a smooth ride. And how we responded to those was just pushing through, because at one point it got to a point that was all we could do, because the sidewalks were just so bumpy, and then it would go smooth for a second and then bumpy again, or we would hit a crack, that it got to a point that it would have been better off if we stayed on the side of the road, which is not safe within itself. So we didn't do that, obviously. But yeah, that played a huge role in it. And when we like ran into issues, as in when we were in the student center, we didn't run into that many issues because a lot of times the students were kind of walking away from us, which like kind of not in a disrespectful way, but more in like, oh, let me get out of their way. Not like, oh, there's an issue, let me get out of their way. Like, I don't know how to properly put that, but it wasn't in a negative annotation. But we did have, like, when we had to open doors and things like that, we did luck out that 9 times out of 10 when we were coming up to a door, somebody opened it. We only had one encounter that somebody didn't open it. And that was probably the biggest environmental barriers. So I'm gonna talk on into the personal reactions and just reactions of how like I was feeling sitting down in the chair and kind of just before, during, and then after. I might not discuss after that much in this video because we talk about it like later in the video in our summary and in our final debrief after we did the assignment for 2 hours. But beforehand, I was very excited. I was excited to kind of put myself into this position and immerse myself because I don't think a lot of people realize how unaccessible, I don't know if that's a word, but how campus is not accessible to every student. And I knew that, but I knew that before this assignment, but I also realized a lot more that like things that I'd never realized or would have realized until I was sitting down in the wheelchair. So yeah, that beforehand, I was so excited. I was excited to just see how people would react. I was excited how I would have to accomplish and get through the barriers and see what Victoria would have to do to help me as well. So during it, like I said, I did not realize a lot of these issues and realize how unaccessible campus is. Like we said, a lot of this time we talk about the sidewalks, and I think that's because those, I don't want to say are easy fixes, but they're easier to fix than others. So because it's like, why did we put the sidewalk in there to begin with like that? But we kind of have to just deal with the buildings we have. But I never realized how bumpy the roads were until I was in the chair. So you do notice in like some of our videos, like it's like bouncing around a lot. While I was in the chair, people have a staring issue. And Victoria was just talking about how people were staring and how we had that one encounter with the one lady where she was just very like, it almost felt like I was an animal in the zoo. So, which no one should feel like, and Victoria admits to it, and I'll also admit to it, like, I think it's human nature to kind of stare, especially when something's quote unquote not normal. So that was probably the biggest thing that, like, I didn't realize. I didn't really notice anybody like saying anything or like whispering or anything, but I did, like she said, I did run into some friends and they were very concerned, but when I was telling them what the assignment was, they obviously got a little less concerned. And they thought it was pretty interesting how I was able to move around so well in it. And that was another thing that I never really thought about until we did this assignment. Like I said, most reactions from people were very good, so that made me feel really good. Obviously, sometimes people get uncomfortable in these positions, and like I said, they'll either walk away or there is one little clip in the video and like during our vlog that somebody kind of like looked at us, looked like they wanted to help, but then proceeded to just walk through the door. But yeah, I think the number one time that I had a real intrinsic barrier, that was the time when the lady was like staring at me, because like I said, it did kind of make me feel like an animal in a zoo, and like I had 3 heads, and it kind of made me want to like ball up a little bit and like hide away. And it not only made me uncomfortable, but I also think it put Victoria in a weird position because she was the caregiver, and that was probably the biggest like thing that we saw that was a quote unquote barrier. So now you'll see little clips from the day. Some of the clips is just us complaining because the sidewalks were bumpy, or we got in to be able to talk to some people. So yeah, y'all enjoy the next few minutes of clips, and we will see y'all at the debrief slash summary. And I think we call it a debrief, but it fits more into a summary right after the assignment. So yeah. Okay, vlog number 1. So we just started. So we tried to leave out the doors on the side of HKS. Realized there's no ramp there. So we could have gone down the stairs, but we're gonna go back to the front of HKS and go down the stairs. So, not the stairs, the ramp. But fun fact, the wet leaves next to the stairs on the exit there aren't very, they're soft. So the wheelchair got stuck. So
The terrain was too rough.
yeah, the rough terrain was a little too rough. So now we're back towards the front door, and we'll see how it goes. To the front door. There's no, what is the button called? The ADA buttons?
I think so.
And I think we knew that, but
It still sucks though.
it still sucks though.
How are they supposed to?
Alright, so once again, I think we're kind of just talking our way through the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we're going to the student center. I don't think I made that clear, but it's a steep hill from HAS to the student center. So I think we should be fine, but you never know. It's always a little steep. This is the first time that we'll actually be like seeing people to see if people will actually look, which I hope they don't. Had a really fun moment. So we just entered into the student center and we're rolling up, and Victoria was about to press the button, and then somebody was like leaving the door and they held the door open for us. So a little win, a little win for the day. Now to the student center, or we're already here, but one or the other.
Maybe we'll take the elevator.
We'll take the elevator. Alright, so we're about to hop on the elevator. It was a little far from where we started, and it was partly we did take a wrong turn somewhere, but like even though like you still have to like walk a bit to find it, and it's kind of like in the middle of like it's in the
tucked away.
Yeah, it's like tucked away that like it's kind of hard to see. And I've been on this elevator before, and the buttons are a little weird. Like I've entered into the Moe's kitchen before, like so. Yeah, so we'll get there when we get there. We'll figure it out.
I got you. This is Mags. She's being all independent like she can, because she is able. And the school provides it. What a champion. Whee! Fun.
So we just left the student center, and we're about to go down this ramp, and it's like they have a cute design on the concrete here, but it's very like
It's bumpy.
it's bumpy, and
So if somebody was struggling with like
to grip or the core strength of the patient, like all around campus had uneven surfaces. These are just a few examples that we found just going from building to building.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look. So this was just happened that the accessible button is broken. It's a sad day. And
What if it was raining?
Yeah.
What if it was raining?
Luckily, it's not raining right now. Vlog us again. So quite literally, we just got inside, but we had a good encounter and a bad encounter. Well, not really a bad encounter, but we were walking, and Victoria went to go press the button, and that button you kind of had to press a little hard, just because it might be stuck, just like the one in HKS, that it has a hard time opening and closing. But we had a encounter where somebody kind of looked at us, kind of looked like they wanted to help, but then continue going in. Which I don't know if it just looks because I look able-bodied and they don't know, but that's all the whole point of a disability, is we don't know what a person's going through. And then as the door was opening, a gentleman opened the door for us and held it for us. So another good encounter. During this time, we introduced ourselves to the SGA. Okay.
Mags is doing it on her own.
Yes.
Because she is able. We got this.
What's so crazy is we were walking in, and I can't remember how many people stared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not handicapped, so like it's such a crazy.
And then two people
like moved out of the way, which is nice.
Yes. And so like people are nice, like don't get me wrong, but people stare. That's a strange feeling is when people stare. I got it. We just sat down, finished our lunch. We're on the roll again. That was so bad. That was such a bad joke.
I love puns.
But,
On the roll again. Sorry.
but a little so a little debrief on our lunch. So Victoria transferred me from the wheelchair to the booth, right? And we were just kind of people watching, and I guess people watch us, but we can't get over. We were initially rolling to the table, and there was this lady that was just straight up like staring at me. Like it was a little weird, and people like to stare, and that is such excuse us, which is such a crazy thing, because I'm like, what's the point of staring? There's nothing wrong. But yeah, we also noticed that there is only, so out of the main entrances for the student center,
Wait, are we gonna go to the president's building?
yes, that's our next stop. So that's our next stop. We are gonna actually take a little trip to the office. I don't know what office that's called, but where
the president is.
Yeah, where the president is. And
That's
see.
campus.
Yes. No, we're actually gonna walk to the White House actually.
Wheeler Sales.
But so out of the main entrances, there are only a handful that have buttons to the door. So like going into where the food is, all of those entrances from the outside, there are no buttons to it. Okay, I was disrespectfully cut it off by my video soup because apparently I can only talk for 3 minutes at a time.
Locking you in.
So we are in front of Meisler Hall right now, and it was very interesting because we were just talking about how like there's just a lot of stairs getting into Meisler Hall. So we walked over to the front of it because we're finding our way to Joe Bonner's office. And yes.
That building.
Perfect. Thank you. And we found this, which is super interesting. It's the handicap accessible entrance for Meisler Hall, but that's a steep ramp. That's a slope. Like I'm looking at it and I'm tired already, and I'm not
even did
walking.
it yet.
So it's just very interesting to see how
Accommodations we getting.
yeah. So yeah, we'll keep you updated. Okay, so we've made it to the office. That's my face. Here's the beautiful office. There's 3 different entrances, and we will admit we are in the back, but there are no buttons to let us in.
And keep in mind, the backside is where a lot of students like to walk, because you got student parking, and then you have multiple classic buildings the opposite direction.
Yes.
And
The front of the building is facing the University Boulevard. Mm-hmm. So most students aren't walking to the front of the building. So there is no button, and there's no indication
of an elevator
where the elevator is. So we are going to continue our hunt and continue our travel, and we'll keep you posted. So it's been less than 10 seconds. We're just trying to enter this building. That is our goal
right now.
And we turned, and we have not only stairs in front of us, but there's stairs up here and then stairs going into the building. So I guess this just means we'll have to turn around and try to go to the other side and see if there's any stairs that way. So
no stairs that way.
Or yes, hoping that there's no stairs that way, that we can actually get up and see it. So cool. We are all right. So our adventure has finally made it to the front of the building. Luckily, we were pulling up, and they have. Oh no, you're good. Luckily, we just pulled up, and they have a ramp that we just went up. It's a little curvy, which is weird. I don't know why they just didn't make it straight, because it was kind of like you had to.
I feel like it's nature-based, trying to keep
the
naturalness of it.
Yes, and so luckily they do have handicap spots, but they, once again, goes back to the stairs, which is kind of weird, and they do have a button at the front of the building.
Not the back.
Not the back of the building. Once again, this is facing, both the doors open, which is also really nice. There's a lot of buildings that don't. So
That is dangerous, though.
both of us are crushing out at the current moment. So we are at what is this
Counseling.
called? Student counseling, student wellness.
Yeah.
And there is stairs going
front.
at the front and stairs at the side. You have to go all the way to the back of the building to enter the ramp.
And something that occurred to me for perspective, being in a wheelchair, it kind of takes you back to when, like, you're ashamed of me. You're ashamed of my disability. I have to go to the back of the building to just be accommodated when the front door, where everyone else can get to, that I cannot.
Yeah. So, like, this building really made us crash out a little bit just because this is student health.
Yeah.
It is. So this is our last little vlog before we debrief. And
the HKS.
yes, we are sitting in front of the Health and Kinesiology and Sport building. So we were just noticing, like, we were just walking, like, we were about to take the ramp up. And here's the front of it. So there's stairs here and here, right? So there's this sidewalk here goes up here. And it's like, it's a ramp, so you can get up to it. But if you follow it across,
It doesn't connect with the other
it doesn't connect with the other ramp. So you would have to go down the curb and then go
Onto the grass.
Yeah, onto the grass.
If you were to cut. Otherwise, you had to go all the way
Way around.
just to get back to the ramp for us.
Back to the ramp. Once again, we also, like, throughout this assignment, we realized that a lot of these buildings have been built in, like, the 60s, and you need to take accountability for the buildings you have. But so we also understand that, like, there are going to be some silly designs. Like, we didn't make it to the humanities building, and we all know, the humanities.
Right.
That's
Especially with the elevator's not working. I
yes,
didn't even know that.
The elevators are not working. They might be working now, but the last time I was there, they weren't working. So we're just being, like, nitpicky.
We're
but
inspectors, right?
yes, we're inspectors and we're advocators. So
Yes.
we're just finding, like, little things, and we just find this design a little silly. Like, why would you do that? And we picked a rainier day that I think it's personally harder in the wheelchair with it being rainier, because if the grass was dry, you can just go over the grass and it'd be perfectly fine. Well, I'm back in my legs. So we are doing a quick little debrief, and we're gonna talk about me being in the chair. I know, we're twinnies. But we're gonna talk about the time I was in the chair, and then we're gonna take time and talk about yours and just our overall thoughts and processes on it. So personally, I didn't think much of it, because I think in the long run, I realized that I was able to stand up, and, like, if something happened, like, I could stand up for myself. I don't know. I think that's a bad play on words for me on that aspect. But I did notice the stairs. That was probably the biggest thing that kind of freaked me out. Not freaked me out, but, like, that was strange that people stared. Because it's like, they're just human beings that need a little bit of help. That's all they are.
Stare at me like I look like an ogre.
Yes. Or, like don't look at my disability. Like, that's kind of my mentality.
Look at my face.
Exactly. Look at my face. And to be honest, the chair was not that comfortable. Like, my tailbone hurts a little bit. So I can only imagine, like, how people feel after a while, because I was able to stand up after 2 hours. But yeah, that was a lot of strange things. We had a lot of, with the negative interactions we had a lot of good ones too. We had more good ones than bad ones. Most people were willing to open the door and help if needed. I think there's only a few times that we actually
Somebody was just like, oh no, there's a handicapped person.
Yeah.
Avoiding this.
There was only about 2 people that did that. So yeah.
Everyone else, like, accommodated us. Like, they either waited for us, or they gave us enough room to where they could go around us and we could go too.
So so that was my time. It was good. I don't want to say that I enjoyed it, but it was very interesting putting yourself in that position, because I never really thought about it that way until I was sitting in the chair. So Victoria, how was your?
Okay, so as the pusher, the advocate, and the assistant.
I think you played a bigger role in this project than I did. I kind of just sat there.
My hands hurt.
Yeah, they're very red.
The handle was okay to grab, but having to go up and down hills, having to, say hypothetically at an emergency stop, it's not very accommodating for the pusher, for the assistant. Making sure that, like, everyone, like, didn't treat her poorly, and like I was more aware of everyone else than I normally would be. And I didn't want anyone to treat her poorly, look at her poorly, or just act weird when we're just walking around and we're doing our thing. And
that's what we did most of this time, is we just walked around and we just adapted ourselves and put ourselves in the
their
world.
shoes. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we noticed where there wasn't buttons, too many stairs. Like the JAG tran really worried me, because at a certain point, right in front of the Wyndon Administration Building.
Yes, where President Bonner is.
The orange JAG tran goes down this lane, but there's no bumps to indicate that someone in a wheelchair or someone blind should stop. There's none. So that means if they're not paying attention, say they're blind, deaf, or in a wheelchair, and they're not paying attention, and they just go, they're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I've used to push my grandma in a wheelchair, so like I understand how to work it and everything, but I realized while we were in the cafeteria, even though there was a lot of space to like walk around, we had to make sure we walked all the way around certain locations, because the tables were close together. They were trying to accommodate as much people as possible, but they weren't registering the distance in between to get wheelchairs. Or like Tucker's chair. Tucker's chair is big.
It's huge.
And our chair was small. So like imagine him just trying to get through. So yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, and our next step is, and I would love to do this.
Email him.
Yeah, so we are going to make an appointment with Joe Bonner, which is really interesting. We don't know if it's really gonna get anywhere, but
bringing the acknowledgement and the awareness is one step closer to progress.
And we just want to like we said, we've said in numerous videos that it's expensive. Hopefully interrupted. But we understand that these things are expensive, that we just want to know that there is a plan on fixing it, because no student here should not be able to feel comfortable and not feel like a student because of their disability. Like, that's one big thing that I feel like South really focuses on, about how we're a big family and how, like, we should look out for each other. Well, this is one step closer. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Also, when we were in the cafeteria and Maggie was ordering her food, right? The idea of you having the iPad coming out.
Oh yeah, so we were talking about it while we were eating, and the little like tablet things that they have at the student center, they're kind of like hard to tap, and like luckily, like I said, I have pretty good core control. That I was able to kind of lean forward and press the buttons, and I was like, but if I didn't and somebody had to do it by themselves,
or you couldn't fully extend your arm.
Yeah, something like that. We're talking about maybe doing like iPads, like, you know how we see at Walmart when you're about to buy one, like they're attached with like the cord. Having that you were able to like pull down and then put back up. So those are just like little things that.
And then buttons inside and outside of buildings was a big thing.
Yes, that was a huge thing. That was a huge thing.
Advocate.
Even in our own building here in HKS, there's only about 2, maybe 3 doors that have buttons on them that you would have to walk around to the front. So like the ramp in the front, like here, there's no buttons up there, both going in and out.
Also, thinking about it right now, if I wanted to go to the Mitchell Center and go straight down HKS where the classrooms are, you can't. Not in a wheelchair. You have to go all the way down to the building, all the way to the other side.
And you have to go down where like the gyms are. So there's just little things, and it's one step closer, and that's all. Acknowledgement's the key to getting like.
Acknowledgement, awareness, and then let's go to progress.
Yes. So we're getting there, and we're gonna figure it out, and yeah. Bye, Miss Shelley.